Good evening, class. Yeah, welcome to our episode on King David's kindness to Mefibhosheth. Mefibhosheth was the son of Jonathan. Jonathan was the son of Saul. Saul was the king of Israel, but Saul was an enemy of David. So we are seeing here David giving kindness to Mefibhosheth, who is from the family of his enemy, meaning to say from the family of Saul. Although David had a covenant with Jonathan. The story is coming from 2 Shimei chapter 9, 2 Samuel chapter 9. So that's where the story is coming from. My question is to you, class, are you in a desperate and hopeless situation? If you are desperate and if you are hopeless, you have no hope, then listen to this episode. Listen to this presentation. God can show kindness to any person. We're talking of David. Why are we saying David Amelech? Because God instructed David Amelech to show kindness to a lamb. Munakaremara, chirema. Mwana wa Jonathan was lamb. Was called Mefibhosheth. God showed kindness to Mefibhosheth, the lamb, and the weak. He can show kindness to you. He can show kindness to me. Whether you are weak, whether you are lame, whether you are crippled, He is in the Bible, 2 Shimei chapter 9. But before that, before we delve deeper into this episode, as we are unraveling in the succeeding subsections, I need to put a disclaimer here. But the disclaimer is coming from Amos chapter 7, verse 14 to 17, where Amos, the prophet, was called by King Amaziah. And King Amaziah said, Amos, we hear that you are teaching. Amos said, yeah, I'm teaching. And so King Amaziah said to Amos, can you stand up and explain to us? And Amos stood up to Amaziah and said, this Amos, the verse is found on Amos chapter 7, verse 14 to 17. And Amos said, I never set up to be a preacher or a spiritual counselor or a spiritual geologist. Never had I have plans to be a preacher. I raised my father's cattle. I raised my father's goats. And I pruned trees in the villages. And I used to hunt game for my family. But never was I a Magidi and Rambata Magidi and But then God, this is Amos chapter 7. But then God took me off the farm of my father against these unwelcome and unpleasant vicissitudes of poverty, to give me a task to teach. So you tell me not to teach? No. Was when Moshe received the Torah, this is Amos. When Moshe received the Torah at Sinai, Mount Sinai, he transmitted the Torah to Joshua. And from Joshua transmitted to the elders. And the elders transmitted the Torah to the prophets. And the prophets transmitted to the men of Great Assembly, called Knesset Agedola, the Great Assembly. And yet the Great Assembly had three maxims, three important aphorisms. The first one was that be measured in a legal process. Number two, raise up and teach people about the Torah. Number three, make a fence for the Torah. So I like number two. This is coming from the Great Assembly. They raised three maxims. Can you teach the Torah? Yes. You can teach the Torah. And we have said this found on Ethics of the Fathers, Ethics, P.K. Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 1, verse 1. And my disclaimer continues like this. And the contents of some of these episodes and presentation do not have the force and effect of law and are not meant to bind the public or listeners in any way. Because I remember I'm not a physician. Remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. And no one did I ever say in some of these episodes, don't go to the hospital, don't go and see your prophets, don't go and see your pastors. That's not my duty. This is a scholarly presentation. Most of these episodes are scholarly because I'm, Talmud Chacham, someone who learns and try to teach. So these episodes are only intended to provide clarity to willing religious people regarding some difficult, and seemingly contradictory concepts in the Torah. And in some of the presentation, we're saying we bring books that mean this that you are saying we bring books that mean to many thought books. And I will quote what Professor Dano Borean said about the Bible. Professor Borean wrote a book called the Intertextuality and Study of the Midrash, that was written and published in 1994. So he says that Torah texts have severe gaps, and that the role of the Midrash, what we are doing, the role of the Midrash to fill in those gaps, especially those silences, contradictions, and repetitions in the text that demand interpretation. And there's even a native rabbinic saying that was said by Professor Boren that says, the whole Bible is crying. Each verse is crying. Each verse in the Bible is crying, saying, please, is crying out, please interpret me. Please use the Midrash to interpret me. Please use the Gemara. Please use the Zohar. Please use the Kabbalah. Please use the Mishnah to interpret me. The verses are crying. And I want to reiterate still on here that remember, all the Bibles that we have now, they were transmitted or translated from Hebrew or Aramaic into Greek, and from Greek to all other languages, Latin, Rome, all other languages. And we as we read the Bibles, all those Bibles from our context, through those interpretations, something was lost. Through those interpretations, I'll give an example. Our Bible talks about rationaria, talks about when the Jewish people were at the Bible says, if in English, they says the Red Sea. Reshona Pagungwa Java. So it was a mistranslation. Pagungwa Java is Chirungu Red Sea. Apana Red Sea. And then the Torah says the Sea of the Reeds. The Sea of the Reeds. Aritsi Gungwa Java. Chiro dangarpa. Wakaskopa Gungwa Java. Aiwa. Aritsi Gungwa Java. It's the Sea of the Reeds. So that's what the Midrash is coming to bridge to fill the gap. Aiwa. Aritsi Gungwa Java is the Sea of the Reeds, not the Red Sea. So those are some of the mistranslations that the Midrash solves. And yet, some of us are held in the vice grip, or the vice-like grip of hopelessness and despair. And they're asking this question in their lives: is life worth living? Let me tell you, not as a spiritual geologist, not as a pastor, not as a prophet, but let me tell you something. And this could be your great news. God did not create you to be defeated, to be discouraged, to be frustrated, to be wandering, or a wandering soul. He has bigger plans for you and for me. His greater life for you and for me. The reason you were born is very clear. It's a clear sign and indication that the world was not, and the world will never operate without you. That there's no if that the birthday. When the birthday, God foresaw that the world would never function without you. You see, when we are unraveling the story of Mefibhosheth, who was lame, Angakarimara, Mefibhosheth, but King David showed kindness to him. God showed kindness to Unakarimara, was desperate. So, and the answer to that is closer to you. And the answer is the Torah of Truth. And the Torah is as simple as first grade arithmetic, and as real as your heartbeat, as simple as eating cold lumps of porridge. That's the Torah. And I'll reiterate something. There is this other day when Pythagoras, Pythagorean triple, the Pythagoras himself, and Pythagoras himself, in pursuit of knowledge, when he found the Torah, although a story is it that Pythagoras had a vow, a vow of poverty. I don't know those guys, Pythagoras and likes of Josephus, those scholars in antiquity. Right, vows. So Pythagoras, one of his vows was vow of poverty. Pythagoras, but when he discovered the 72 names of God, Yod He Vav He, the 72 names of God, Pythagoras, sacrificed 100 cows. I got to remember 100 to celebrate the breakthrough. When you found it, the 72 names of God. I can remember 100 Pythagoras. He 100. He slaughtered them. This is sacrificed. He was following Eureka in the way. So many things. He was happy. And still on that, we have a story of Aristotle. When Aristotle met Rabbi Shimei, the elder, in Jerusalem, Aristotle, Aristotle. When they did a discussion with the rabbi, Rabbi Shimei in Jerusalem, Aristotle said it. He wrote a letter, Aristotle, to Alexander the Great, because Alexander the Great was the student of Aristotle. Alexander the Great. He wrote a letter to Alexander the Great to say, Alexander the Great was the king of the Greeks, but he was centered in Egypt. So Aristotle said, after meeting the rabbi Shimon, or Rabbi Simeon, chief rabbi, was then the Kohen Gadol, very elderly then. Aristotle wrote a letter. What I'm saying is found in the book called, there's a book called Sefer Hadorosi. That's where this information is coming from. Then Aristotle said to the Rav, after understanding, he said, so why did I write all these books and the philosophies learned around the world? So he wrote a letter to Alexander the Great in Egypt. He said, Alexander, to my student Alexander the Great, from today onwards, I was like a goat that was seeking for the deeper version of cool water. So I was very fortunate I met this Rabbi Shimoni. And from today onwards, I automatically resigned from being a philosopher, a Greek philosopher. That's Aristotle. Then he said, all the books that I'd written, all the books that I wrote around philosophy, Aristotle, if I had another time, I was going to collect all the books and burn them, and start now to start the Torah. But I couldn't do that without a knowledge, because you are now a king. This is a letter to Alexander the Great. You are now a king. I understand. You were my student. Aristotle saying to Alexander the Great, you were my student. But I just thought that with the knowledge that I gave you, are a king because of my knowledge, the Aristotle. But now, for me to just burn all those books it's now difficult, because I'm afraid that would kill me. But I'll just write a letter to say, all my books that I wrote must be brought together and be banned. Because they were nonsensical. I found the truth, the Torah of Truth from Rabbi Shimon. And I've said before this, before Aristotle, I've said Pythagoras, he did a sacrifice of 100 cows when he discovered this truth about the 72 names of God. So, what are we saying? We're talking about the Midrash. The Bible is just a summary. There are gaps in the Bible, which the Torah and the Midrash are filling the gaps. For example, the Bible talks about Cain killing Abel. What made Cain to kill Abel? Was it jealousy? And was it jealousy because God had rejected Cain's sacrifice? And why would God choose the sacrifice of another brother over another? And then if we examine the issue, we will discover that Cain had a quarrel with Abel. Because they said, let's divide the universe, let's divide the world. And Cain said, I'll take the land. And Havel said, I'll take the movables. Everything, animals. And so Cain said to Abel, this is from the Midrash. Cain said to Abel, Saka, so you don't stand on my land. Don't stand on my land. And Abel said, remove my clothes. Because clothes are movables. And Cain rose up against his brother Abel and murdered him. This is found in Bereshit Rabbah, in Genesis Rabbah, chapter 22, verse 7. So, this is what's happening. So the Midrash closes, the Midrash fills, is a gap filler. The Midrash is a gap filler. You understand some of these things? So, there are so many questions in the Bible. Yeah, you remember that story on Genesis chapter 48, when Jacob was saying to his sons, especially to Joseph, I'll give you the bow, I'll give you the arrow, I'll give you the sword that I was using, and that I was using against the Amorites. And the Chakupa munondo wandaka gwana wanu Amorites ndakavakunda, I'll give you munondo. And if you read the whole Bible, there's no story about Jacob fighting the Amorites with the spear, with the sword. But if you read now the Chronicles of Jamiel, the Hebrew Bible stories, the Chronicle of Jamiel, read this book. It's the Midrash. The Chronicle of Jamiel is an extension, is a book that is written as a Midrash to fill the gaps. Remember, there's that verse that says, Joshua, I think it's Joshua chapter 10, verse 18, that says, when Joshua was fighting the Amorites, he prayed to God, and God allowed him to stop the sun. And the verse says, and Joshua did manage to do that. And is this not written in the book of Yasha, in the book of Jasha? In the book of Jasha, Joshua requesta kutakunde vavengi in zuva rakamira nomwedzi kamira pagibwa. Izvazvisere in the book of Jasha. That's Joshua 10 verse 18. You see, so those are some of the gaps that the Midrash is coming to fill. Like another question is we know the story of Adam being created by God, and after Adam, Chava being created by God. And the story goes on like this. After that, Adam and Eva begot Cain, firstborn, and Havel, or Abel. And after that, Cain begot himself a wife. Where is this wife coming from? It's a gap. Because there were no people before that. But Cain had told Mukadzi, it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible. Hapana, but Cain akaona mukadzi. The Midrash is an answer for those things. So when we are saying the Torah of Truth, we are saying all those gaps, my gaps are understood by mistakes. They are not mistakes. The Bible is just a summary. Remember all the events in Genesis. My events are not Genesis also. All Genesis chat, only Genesis. All those events took place for close to 1,600 years. If every event was put in a book, so this is the Midrash now. When the Romans went to Israel to rob all the Jewish books, they just took the Bible that you know, and they left all the information. Because remember, Judaism was held like we call it oral. No, nothing was written until at a later stage when Rabbi Gamliel started quoting the Mishnah, book of the Mishnah. So there are so many questions, and the Midrash answers those questions. Another question, which is in the Bible. The Bible says, day number 1, God created light. Zuva rekutanga chiedza. Zuva richibudenga nepasi. Richita zvose zvomvura. Richina zuva mwedzi nenyeredzi. What are we saying? The first day light. Zuva rekutanga chiedza light. Richibudenga nepasi. Richita zvose zvomvura. The fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun, yeah. So what light was created the first day? Can we see that light? So when the Midrash doesn't answer, right? So nothing much. Our story of today is earth-shattering information that we have today in this episode is about David Amelech. David Amelech showing kindness to Mefibhosheth, the son of his enemy. Meaning, both Mefibhosheth was the grandson. Angari mzukuru was Saul mwana wa Jonathan. So this is David's question when he was king now, the king of Israel. He said, "Is there still anyone who is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Hakuna ere kumana akasara pa Muria Sauro to show kindness. Is there still anyone who is left? The verse is found in 2 Samuel chapter 7. So David asked, what can I, prior to that, David asked, what can I do for God? You know the story about the temple. Now David is asking, what can I do for others? So David's question showed great love because Saul made himself an enemy of David. It was customary in those days for the king of a dynasty to completely massacre and wipe anyone connected to the prior dynasty. So David, it was customary. King, that's what Saul did. But King David went against the principle of revenge and against the principle of self-preservation and asked for favor. That I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake, because I the covenant with Jonathan. Because David did this because he remembered the covenant and the relationship he had with Jonathan. So the story goes on like this. He then called Ziba. Then some people said there is Ziba. Ziba was a servant of Saul, servant of Shu, the former servant of Saul Ziba. So So Ziba was called. And David said, are you Ziba? Please, do a Ziba. The former servant of Saul. God, yes, then Ziba. Yeah. Is there anyone, or is there still someone of the house of Saul on Ziba when don't go save their soul? Because Saul, I may show kindness of God. And Ziba said, yes, there is still a son of Jonathan who is lame. Akaremara hake. In his feet, makumba ake ose. Because when his mother was pregnant, Mefibhosheth, when she heard that Jonathan and Saul had died in the war, she miscarried. This is Mefibhosheth. And Ziba said, but now this Mefibhosheth is living in the house of Macha, the son of Amiel, in Lodiba. He's living in hiding. Why is he hiding? Because you were fighting Saul. Saul was fighting you. He was hiding because of fear of you, king. So David said, call him. The story of Mefibhosheth is very piteous. So, but like I've said, according to the custom of the day, the customary rules of the day, Mefibhosheth was coming from Saul, from the house of Shu. So David had all the right to kill him, because he was coming from Saul, who was a rival of or a threat to David. So again, we have seen that in 2 Samuel chapter 16, there's a man called Shimei. Shimei was a partisan for the house of Saul to kill David. So there were few, Israelites who felt that David was supposed to be king. So Shimei founded a group and they were fighting David. They didn't like David to be a king, but they were still supporting the house of Saul. So they didn't want David to become a king, so they were defending and supporting Saul. Even Ishbosheth was the father of was the young brother, as he was the father of was the young brother of Jonathan, and was the son of Saul or Shu. Ishbosheth angara mwana wa Saul, so he was a apparent. He was supposed to take over after Saul. So Ishbosheth and Shimei, they didn't like David. So that's why Ziba said Mefibhosheth is hiding in the house of Macha, the son of Amiel. Because Mefibhosheth was very afraid that he would be killed by the new king. So, and David said, who can go and call him? Then he was called, Mefibhosheth. And the king said to Mefibhosheth, are you the son of Jonathan? He said, yes, I'm the son of Jonathan. And when he was called Jonathan by David, he had unfounded fears. He was dumbfounded. Because Mefibhosheth knew maybe I'm being called to be killed, because my father was an enemy of this man, of this king. And yet David Amalek removed the fears of Mefibhosheth. So David said to Mephibosheth, don't fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan's sake. Because of Jonathan's sake, I will show you kindness. Some of the blessings that we have, are because of the covenant God had with our parents, with our ancestors. Some of the blessings, some of the riches, some of the wealth we are enjoying now, some of those are and were because of our prior covenants that happened between God and our ancestors. And David said, because of Jonathan's sake, I will show you and I will restore to you all the land of Saul, all the land of your grandfather. And you shall eat bread at my table continually, you Mefibhosheth. Then Mefibhosheth bowed his head and said, yeah, but I'm a dog. And David said, don't fear. Don't fear. I will surely show you kindness because of Jonathan. No. You are karimara. Mabasa yako akarimara. You are wicked. You are a wicked son from a righteous father. You are karimara. The way you operate, the way you know, you cannot even walk, you cannot do God's work, but your father was righteous. So I'm giving this blessing because of your father. So as a father, what are you doing for your children? Do you think God will say, they will in another state? So let me give you the, come and eat on my table. Come and eat with me. Do you think he would? But David said that to Mefibhosheth. And the similar happens with Yeshua, with Jesus. Jesus told his disciples that they would eat and drink at his table in heaven. It's not a joke. And Mefibhosheth said, what is your servant? So I'm not to consider him. I'm a dead dog, meaning I'm worthless and I'm insignificant. Very insignificant from the back of the beyond. All these years of hiding, I was in fear. I was living abject poverty. And this made Mefibhosheth think of himself as worthless. And this is what David said to Ziba, the servant of Saul. And David said, Ziba, you were Ziba, Mirab, stand here. The Ziba stood. And David said, I've given to Mefibhosheth. You were Ziba, both Ziba, we said Ziba was the servant of Saul. So David Amelech called the same Ziba, the servant, because he was now the servant of Mefibhosheth. Both Mefibhosheth and so David said to Ziba, I've given Mefibhosheth, your master's son, all that belonged to Saul. So you and your sons, you Ziba, who was the servant of Saul, you and your sons and your servants shall work the land for Mefibhosheth. The land that was for Mefibhosheth, the lands. Minda yose ngari ya Saul, minda yose ngari ya Jonathan, nda pa Mefibhosheth. So you Ziba iwe, ne wana wako, because wunda mfarira, chamushandira. So, and Ziba said, it's okay. And Ziba started to work for Mefibhosheth. And Mefibhosheth was eating at the same table with the king of Israel. What a blessing. This person was born as a non-entity. Like Yahovino, like Jacob went to Padan Aram as a non-entity. Jacob again Padan Aram as a non-entity. And he came back from Padan Aram as a nation. And I don't know how to express it, but we are saying Mefibhosheth was lame. We are crippled. Some of us, we are crippled. We were crippled by poverty. We were crippled by geographical location. We didn't have access to school. Some are still swimming in abject poverty. Some are still lame, crippled. When someone is crippled, he doesn't have legs. But listen to this. God is there. God is there. And God fulfills his promise. Like David fulfilled his promise with Mefibhosheth. His promise with Jonathan. So automatically, although he was lame, although he was crippled, but from then he was no longer hiding in fear of the king. He was no longer hiding. He was now eating. He was no longer in poverty. He was no longer separated from the king. Now he had great privileges. Mefibhosheth, Mara, great privileges. The person that he thought was going to kill him offered him. She showed him kindness. Showed him kindness. So David's grace to Mefibhosheth is a wonderful picture of God's grace to us. That grace which David showed Mefibhosheth is a wonderful sign, is a wonderful picture of God's grace to us. Because we are Mefibhosheth. We are crippled. We don't have enough education. We are living in abject poverty. We are poor. We all those things. But when David did it, it changed. That changed Mefibhosheth's life. From a non-entity to a nation. From a person who was swimming in abject poverty. To eating, to be someone who was now eating at David from that day until he died. What a favor. So we are saying, we are that Mefibhosheth. We are hiding. We are poor. We are weak. We are lame. We are fearful before our king. We are separated from our king. Both of our wicked ancestors. We have wicked souls. So, Saul ancestors who were wicked. But remember, Saul was an enemy of David. So Mefibhosheth was coming from this wicked ancestor, from this wicked family, Yana Saul. But we know that we're coming from such wicked families. But nevertheless, David showed mercy. We are separated from our king. But some of us, our deliberate actions, we separate ourselves from the king because we didn't know him. That's what we see. Takanga tiri kure navo, tanga tiri kure nayo, wakatenga naropa. So the king's kindness is extended to each and everyone. Whether you are lame, whether you are crippled, whether you don't have enough education, whether you come from a family, the downtrodden, look down upon family. Doesn't work like that. So the kindness of God is dependent upon his covenant. What did he say? What did God say to you? No, not God, Father. Remember what Jacob said. Of all the people in this world, Jacob lived with chief swindler of the universe, in Laban, chief swindler. Jacob, Yahovino, lived with chief swindler. But what happened? He cheated him 10 times. And Jacob said, Demarwa Brahmana Nauri, Asnakuva name. Baba yimbe ndo ndisa vasina chundu. Emi ndo ndizigarisa nsina chundu. Asimarwa Brahmana Nauri. Akataradza nongo. Takaona nongo. Kanga meeting with my gods. Mukadzosi zikawanda, zvangu zvikawanda. So what are we saying? Whether we are hiding, whether we are in hiding, God is there for us. We are received as sons. We are received as sons at the king's table, with access to the king and the fellow with him, with God. So you can have that access to God. So then what are we saying? We are just saying the honor, the king's honor does not immediately follow geography, follow family history. God can do anything. Look at the story of Hadassah, Esther. There are so many stories in the Bible. So David's grace to Mefibhosheth is also a pattern for us. God can send his ministering, harmful angels to minister to us. God can make us rich. But the most important riches in this world, the most important wealth in this world and ever, is the knowledge of the Torah of Truth. Knowledge of the Torah of Truth. Some people say that, whatever they say. But let's look for the poor. Let's look for the weak. Let's look for the meek. Let's look for the lamb. Let's look for the hidden people, the hidden ones in Binga, and try to bless them. We should bless others because we're blessed. We Mefibhosheth. Take a bless on Amari. We must show kindness to kindness of God to others who didn't know. So that's the story. Whether you're living in abject poverty, whether you are lame, whether you have been married 90 times, you can still get married. It's very possible with God. Sarah was 65 years. And yet when Pharaoh saw Sarah, Pharaoh said, I haven't seen a Lulapalooza. I've never seen a Lulapalooza of that century. So Pharaoh honor Sarah 65 years. Don't let your situation define you. Don't be defined by your situation. Situations change. God is a game changer. God is a time changer. He changed Mefibhosheth's life from a lame person to David. And from the Midrash, David is God. It's just an analog of God. They can eat on God's table. No. God can do wonders. So, this message is to those, to some of us who are struggling, who are sick in the hospital. Some of us are living in poverty. Some of us are at war. Some of us don't see eye to eye with others. But this message is saying, if God showed mercy to Mefibhosheth, why not you? So God can show us mercy. That was our lecture today in this episode. Thank you so much. May God bless you. Amen, amen, and amen.